Hi, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal, and we are live on our Smile broadcast for the week. Every week, we try to take a moment just to smile and take it easy on ourselves. We do 3 broadcasts a week. For those of you who might not know, we do one at Friday lunchtime, Pacific time, which is normally a learning type one, where we're looking at ourselves a little bit more closely in terms of our emotional intelligence. And then we do the Friday evening one. Hi there, Kerry. The Friday evening one where we try to smile a little bit. And then we do another one on Sunday, which is at 3:30 on a Sunday, where we, hi Isabel, hi Jody. The Sunday one we call our Soul Sunday one, where we bring the tone right down and we get ourselves ready for a new week. So today I've chosen to smile with some quotes from Seinfeld. Um, I think he is one of those people that really is quite amazing in terms of what he achieved in his life, even though he probably never dreamt that he would. It's a really interesting sort of snapshot of somebody. I was reading today, for example, for those of you who are old enough to remember Bob Newhart. I don't know if you know, but hi there, Mary. But Bob Newhart started his comedic career not being a comic at all. For those of you who remember him, he actually trained to be an accountant. And he said he didn't do very well at it. They didn't think he was well suited. Well, you can imagine why. He had that incredible sense of humor, that dry sense of humor. And so he, after all that training to be an accountant, he ended up going, I think I'll try comedy, see how that works for me. And it worked very well. Anyway, but today we're having a little bit of a smile with Jerry Seinfeld. Now, a lot of his humor is what I call pretty dry. You got to think a bit to get to it sometimes. For example, the first quote that I have from him today said, "If a book about failures doesn't sell, is it a success?" So true, right? um, it sort of proves the point. So I don't know about you, but there have been times when I found out, hi Marie, that I found out that things I thought were a total failure actually weren't at all. They were actually great successes in the long term, but we have to wait a while to find those things out. Jerry also said, somebody just gave me a shower radio. Thanks a lot. Do you really want me to have music in the shower? I guess there's no better place to dance than on a slick floor next to a glass door. And wasn't it Farmer who ended up in for those of you who've been around long enough to remember Farmer? But can you, hi Nana and Lizzie, can you remember Farmer did something like that and ended up with a lot of plaster cast around him? So I think that's one of those things that is worth doing. Yeah, he broke his rib. That's right, and his arm. I seem to remember he had a cast on his arm as well. Um, so to me, this is like, let's think about that one. We do some pretty stupid things in our lives, don't we? And really expect to get away with it. Yeah. Yeah. And his wrist. Okay. Thanks, Kerry. I seem to remember that he had some sort of plaster cast on his arm. So that's fair enough. And the other thing that Jerry said was sometimes the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason. Right. And for those of you who don't know, The Road Less Traveled is a very famous book, and it talks about the fact that don't follow the herd, go on your own path. But there are times when maybe going with the flow is not a bad idea, as I found out to my horror sometimes. I seem to spend a lot of my time, swimming upstream when everybody else is just going with the flow downstream. I'm glad you got that book, Nana, because it is a very interesting book. And, there's a reason. It's difficult to read, actually, from my memory of it. When I say it's difficult to read, it's quite a serious book. It's not a quick page turner. You've got to think a lot as you're reading it. But yeah, it certainly is. And Jerry said that a bookstore is one of the only pieces of physical evidence that we still have people that are thinking. All right? A bookstore is one of the only pieces of physical evidence that we still have people thinking. So, so, all right. So Kerry's saying that she broke a rib when she fell in the shower at a high school right before a choir concert. Ouch. Yeah, that sounds pretty painful, doesn't it? And Kerry, I also broke a rib when a horse decided to kick me right in the ribs. And the incredible thing was, in my school, I was at a special school where riding was part of the thing that we did. And it was really interesting because part of what we did was do a lot of very clever cross jumping and cross riding stuff on in the summer for big shows. When you go to the big agricultural shows and things, they always have these demonstrations of trick riding and so forth, and I was part of that. And when I cracked the rib, actually I cracked it, I think, rather than broke it, but it was interesting because I was a key component to that particular demonstration ride. I was the last one, the humor part of it. And, they were all on their big fancy horses, and I was on this little tiny thing that was very badly behaved a lot of the time. And that was all part of the show. But, the interesting thing was that they literally bound me up, they strapped me up, and I still rode. Which is interesting. However, when I went home, I was at boarding school. When I went home for half term, I can remember that I was coughing pretty badly enough that my my mum took me to the doctor and had me examined. In those days, he examined me and he went, she has a broken rib, or cracked or whatever it was, and he said, she should not be she should not be doing very much at all. Never mind, definitely not riding. And so it's interesting that it's amazing what you can do even with a cracked or broken rib. It is a little painful, though. I quite agree with everybody. But so just be careful what you do. I love this one. For those of you who are dog owners, either past or present, for those of you who've ever had a dog. Hi, Erin. Erin, just so that you know, I did talk about your betrayal thing at lunchtime today, just so that you know, and thank you for giving me permission to talk about that. It is somewhere in that broadcast that we did at lunchtime. All right, so these are quotes from Jerry Seinfeld, and this one I really love if you've ever owned a dog, which a lot of us have, and some still do. Dogs are the leaders of the planet, he said. If you see two life forms and one of them is making a poop and the other is carrying it for him, who do you assume is in charge? I don't know. I thought I thought that was pretty clever. Yeah, I like that one as well. Erin, I've given Jody the link to the quotes, so if you need any of them, that you can pull them up for your daddy. All right, so here's another thing Jerry said, which I love, which is there is no such thing as fun for the whole family. How many of you agree with Jerry? Come on, we're all going to go camping. It'll be fun for the family. Yeah, right. Some members, not all. Let's all watch this movie. It'll be a fun family evening. Yeah, for some, not all. So I love that. Yeah, Lizzie agrees on that one as well. Okay. Now, this is for those. I think there are quite a few I think maybe predominant, if not all, the viewers at the moment are female. But hi, Lola. How do you like this one? Jerry said, "What I don't understand is how women can pour hot wax on their bodies, let it dry, and then rip out every single hair by its root, and still be scared of spiders." Yeah, good point, right? So we can endure pain, we just don't like to be frightened. All right. So how many of you are going, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? All right. For those of you who've had a 2-year-old in your life, right? Lizzie totally relates. Yeah. Lizzie totally relates. This is for those of you who've ever had a 2-year-old. This is what he had to say. He said, "A 2-year-old is kind of like having a blender, but you don't have the top to it." Do any of you relate to that one? For those of you who've had 2-year-olds. And this is for anybody who understands the universe in a deep way. You got to think a bit about this, but you need to understand the universe in a very deep way. He said, "Why do people give each other flowers? To celebrate various important occasions. They're killing living creatures. Why restrict it to plants? For example, sweetheart, let's make up. Have this deceased squirrel." So how many of you relate to that? We actually kill flowers as a present to each other. And if any of you have ever had a cat, how many times has a cat brought you a dead thing, as a present? "Hey, look at this, mommy. I killed this for you." So I sort of relate to that. I think that cats understand it doesn't have to be flowers. But a very good point. Now, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think, cats definitely understand it. No problem for them at all. Right. And Jerry also said that it's amazing the amount of news that happens every day always exactly fits into the newspaper. As somebody who spent a lot of time in the newspaper business, believe you me, it takes an awful lot of hard work to make that happen. Now, some of you, um, so some of you really relate to this one. He said, "If I want a long, boring story with no point to it, I have my life." How many of you feel that way? All right, now this one is for anybody who owns sweatpants of any type. Are you ready for this one, people? Jerry said, "You know the message you're sending out to the world with those sweatpants? You're telling the world, I give up. I can't compete in normal society. I'm miserable, so I might as well be comfortable." Um, I think that has something to do with underwear as well. How many of you relate to that in terms of underwear? Which is, there's a limit to what I'm going to wear. Yeah, Marie is saying the funny thing is I'm in sweatpants right now, and I bet you're comfortable. Yeah, Kerry said I could live in sweats. Yeah, I think that they were great. I think most women would be delighted they were invented. Really, it's like, hello, comfortable at last. How good is that? I must admit that there are a lot of things when I downsized. There were a lot of things I gave away, but in my sweatpants I held on to. Lizzie's going, let me just tell you, when I'm in a bad mood, my underwear is ugly. And Kerry's saying, but alas, I'm in jeans and uncomfy. That's your choice, right, Kerry? Mm. Now, this one I think is very clever, but you have to think about it a bit. It said, where lipstick is concerned, the important thing is not color, but to accept God's final word on where your lips actually end. How many of you know the people that try to make their lips look bigger by extending where their lipstick is? It's just like, really? It's like, you can see your lips don't end there. Your lips end much shorter. But people seem to think that nobody will notice that. Interesting. And how many of you agree with Jerry on the fact that the best revenge is living well? Ah, all right. So it's interesting, Kerry. She's saying she went to a meeting tonight and they didn't allow sweats, but it's interesting they allow jeans but not sweats. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, and plus it's over 80 degrees. So are sweats hotter than jeans, is what I'm hearing. I think jeans are pretty hot as well. Not in, you know what I mean. And Jerry said, for those of you who understand your inner child, and that's when I realized when you're a kid, you don't need a costume. You are Superman. How many of you have seen that in children, right? When they really, I was talking about, I have a 30-foot tree in my backyard, which at the days of Star Wars, Cody, hi Jonas, days of Star Wars, Cody went out with his laser saber, whatever it's called, lightsaber, and and played with it and took the top off the tree. And I remember the look on his face. And I said, you know something, Cody, it is a tree. It will continue to grow slightly differently, but it will continue to grow. You've just taken its head off. And, the funny thing is, it's now a 30-foot tree plus. And, I call it Cody's tree. So it was it was just amazing, when I look at it now and I think I can remember when he did that. He definitely was, Darth Vader that day. Yeah, he was dressed like Darth Vader and he was, doing everything like Darth Vader. Okay, so Jerry said, I am so busy doing nothing that the idea of doing anything, which, as you know, always leads to something, cuts into the nothing and then forces me to have to drop everything. This sounds like me on a Saturday. Let me read it again. Listen up carefully, people. It's very clever. I'm so busy doing nothing that the idea of doing anything, which, as you know, always leads to something, cuts into the nothing and then forces me to have to drop everything. I really like that. That describes me very well. So Carrie's not at home at the moment. That's why. Okay, got it, Carrie. All right, now this one. Yeah, that's a bit. All right, so this one is interesting. And do any of you still have hardcover books? This is an interesting one, which I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion on if we can. Jerry asked, what is the obsession people have with books? They put them in their houses like they are trophies. What do you need it for after you've read it? So how many of you know people that have got libraries in their houses? Huge. Yeah, Marie just bought some. So when you finished reading it, what do you do with it? So Lionel, right? Now, I think there's a difference between what I call the hardcover reader. There's some people that read hardcover books, their first editions or whatever, and those sort of things. And then what I call the softcover readers. So, and then they're the Kindle readers, right? So Marie's saying she loves to go back and reread her books. Excellent. All right. Kerry says the same thing. I'm more likely to read them again if I enjoy them. All right. And Jonas is saying sometimes I buy books just to display. I've never really got around to reading them. That is honest, Jonas. I love it. Erin says, oh, my dad had so many books. And we kept moving them from house to house. There were so many of them. Yeah, I totally understand. So Lionel's books are sports books and the classics. All right. Now there's, the interesting thing about the classics is that they get handed down. How many of you had children's books that you you kept and handed down to the next child? That I totally get. I totally understand. Although today, I'm pretty sure that an awful lot of children are reading their books on the tablet rather than on a book. I am certain, not in my generation or yours, but in your children's generation or after that, they're going to go, you actually had books? You know what I mean? It's like trying to explain to somebody what a Walkman was, and what we did before Walkman, BW, before Walkman. Think about that. How did we listen to music? On the boombox. The boombox was hysterical because we actually could take it, we could put batteries in it and put it on our shoulder and walk around with music. Interesting. So, all right. So Isabel says, I need a book in my hands. I think a lot of people enjoy that. Marie is saying, my mum saved all the childhood books to keep for when she gets some grandchildren. Yeah. That is interesting. How many of you have kept all the Disney movies for the same reason? All right. So Jody's saying, I like to hold a book in my hand, but I get the convenience of a Kindle. Yes. It's interesting because I didn't think I would ever read a book on a tablet, but I'm surprised how often I do. And it's easier to turn the pages. You know what I mean? You just go and it turns the page for you. And it's done. So I get it now. But it took me a while to convert. All right. So Marie's saying I have both regular books and a Kindle, and I still go back to the regular books. Isn't it interesting? All right. Now this one is very important. And it's a little bit of understanding of human nature. Jerry says, when you interrupt, you have stopped listening. People need to be heard. All right. So Kerry's saying, I've donated books as credit in a used bookstore when I'm done with them in exchange for more books. Yes, a very good idea. I donate mine to the local Rotary Club that sells them and therefore does good work with the money that they make. Yes, and do any of you have that in your neighborhood where you have what I call a people's library, where you can take your books and put them into a little box, and then other people can come and take that book, and read it. If for those of you who are happy campers, quite often most campgrounds will have a free library where people, just finish reading a book and they leave it there and take another one out to read. Yes, so Maria's saying, I agree. When you interrupt, you've already stopped listening. And so have you ever had that happen to you where you're busy talking and somebody interrupts you? How does that feel? And whilst those people are reacting, have you ever interrupted anybody? I'd like to talk to those people as well, because why did you? Because you had a good reason to interrupt. I do it. I have interrupted people, and I normally interrupt with could I get the Reader's Digest version of the story? Because people, go on and on and on and on, and you're going, they just give me the bottom line. I just don't need all the, and then she said, and then he said, and what's the bottom line of the story, right? But, it's just a different way of people's different personality types. Some people can listen and listen and listen and listen. All right. Jody saying, I've had it happen to me and I've also done it. Well done, Jody. Love the honesty. Marie is saying it feels disheartening when someone interrupts because it feels like they don't see your thoughts as important. No, I don't. I disagree to some degree. Yeah, Marie is also guilty of interrupting too. I love it when we can be honest about both sides of that. So how many of you actually start with the words, I'm sorry to interrupt, but, in other words, you acknowledge that you're doing it. I do it quite often. And sometimes I've said to people, hey, that's a really good story. Could you possibly send me an email about it so I can really get the whole gist of it? And actually, I mean it because, sometimes I know that life is getting in the way and I haven't got time to listen to the whole story, but I'd like to. I'd like to be able to understand the whole story. So why don't you email it to me so I can read it and my own pace and my own time and then respond, which I've done. All right. How many of you have ever been on a date? And if you have, do you agree with Jerry? He said that, let's face it, a date is a job interview that lasts all night. The only difference between a date and a job interview is not many job interviews is there a chance you'll end up naked at the end of it. All right, now this one is a man quote. Okay, and he said, looking at a cleavage is like looking into the sun. You don't stare at it. It's too risky. You sort of get a sense of it and then you look away. All right, and for those of you who've ever paid taxes, and doesn't matter which country you're in, I think you know what the IRS is. Jerry said of the IRS, they're like the mafia. They can take anything they want. And I'm certain that we've all had that moment. Really? I worked so hard for this money and you're taking it from me. But there is the other side. Without them taking it, we wouldn't have some of the things that we have in our lives, right? Now, this one, give this a bit of thought. because this is one about change and about taking risks and things like that. Jerry said, once you start doing only what you've already proven you can do, you're on the road to death. Okay. So if you're so set in your ways, you only do the things that you know how to do, right? You don't go and learn a new hobby. You don't go and, uh, go and visit a new religion, to go and see what they believe. If you only do exactly what you already know how to do and you do it 24/7, as far as Jerry is concerned, you're on the road to death. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's a bit like if you don't use it, you'll lose it, right? And how many of you have found that out? The older you get more and more arthritic and everything else. But it's like an ever increasing circle or decreasing circle because, you start to move less, therefore you get more pain, therefore you move even less, therefore you get even more pain, and so it goes on. Now, this one with a sense of humor, right? Jerry said, I'm in the unfortunate position of having to consider people's feelings. Have any of you ever felt like that? I'd really just like to tell you exactly what I think of you right now. But I need to consider your feelings, so I won't. All right, this is for my female viewers. Jerry said, I don't understand women at all. Like, how can women pour boiling, we know that, but boiling hot wax onto their upper thigh and rip the hair off and still be scared of the spider? So you understand that he used that line a couple of times a different way. And Jerry said, you see, that's the true spirit of Christmas, people being helped by people other than me. I gather he's not a Christmas giver. All right, now how many of you can relate to this one? He said, I love Amazon, one-click ordering, because if it takes 2 clicks, I don't even want it anymore. How many of you have had that where you're going, you see something, feeding on your tablet or on your phone or something, and you think, oh, that's interesting. I quite like that. And then when you go in to have another look at it, there are too many places you have to click, and you go, oh, I don't need it that badly. There is a crossover bra that I'm dying to try for you guys, and I keep getting caught in all the things I have to do, and I end up not buying it. It's amazing. I thought, I bet you I'm not the only one that wonders if that works. So one day I will get that far. He said, if you are a surfer, you want to surf. You don't know if anyone's going to see you, and you don't really care if they do see you. You just live for that feeling. How many of you have danced not caring about what anybody thinks of your dancing? Just for the love of dancing. Hi, Niasha. How many of you done that? The joy of just dancing, and you don't care whether you're dancing still back in the days of John Travolta or whether, whatever age you stop learning the new dances. Actually, it's a good question. What was the last, how many of you learned how to dance hip hop, for example? How many of you, where did your dancing stop in terms of, learning a new dance? And, to me, it's quite interesting when you watch people, you sort of get an idea, even if they are aging well or whatever, you get a pretty good idea of how old they are by what dance they are doing. Have you noticed that? It's like the people who do the, what is it, the lawn sprinkler thing, right? And that's and the John Travolta one I really remember. I'm trying to think what other ones were there. Oh, obviously the twist. If you see somebody still, they can still do the twist. That's pretty good. It's just like, wow. I think the twist was one of the first dances I really learned. Now that I think about it, not easy to do, but once you had it. All right, how about this one? This is a nice one. It's worth putting. That's interesting. And Marie's saying, I remember being so scared at first, but then grew up and danced like nobody was watching. That is so good for your soul. Just enjoy the music and do whatever you want to that music. I find, I for those of you who know Dance Samba, I find when I do Dance Samba, I don't really care. And I know I've got thousands of people watching me, and I don't really care that I can't keep up with all the young people. I just do my little thing in the back, It's just like I am a happy little camper here, because it is not about who is the best dancer. It's about celebrating the fact that we've just hit the next milestone, and so to me, it's really important that we do that. Here's a really nice quote to keep on your mirror. Keep your head up in failure and keep your head down in success. Does that make sense to anybody? When things aren't going right, keep your chins up. In my case, it's a couple of them. Keep your chins up because it's just life and there's a lesson in there for you. But, when you're overly successful, keep your head down. You don't want to lord that over people, although an awful lot of people do. So I found some quotes as well from Tim Allen, for those of you who enjoy him. Yes, it is true. That is true. It's not just that other people hate to see people succeed. I think also people feel not threatened. They feel very jealous of successful people, right? I'm amazed. For those of you who've heard me tell the lobster story, has anybody here not heard me tell that story? Because it is a very interesting concept, that lobster story. There's a reason why they don't put a lid on a lobster basket. And it has a lot to do with life, in my view. So if you haven't heard it, let me know and I will repeat the story. Because when you understand that, life is like that. Okay, is the question mark because you haven't heard the story or you don't understand what I'm saying? They will try and make you miserable if they see you successful. Absolutely, some people will. Okay, Marie doesn't think. Okay, all right. So here's the thing. You will see when you go down to the coast, if you live, anywhere near it, you will see people with, catching lobsters. And, when they catch the lobsters, they don't actually need to put a top on the lobster basket. And the reason is because as soon as one lobster starts to crawl out of the basket, the next lobster will try and crawl on top of that lobster and then pull it back down again. And then the next one will try and crawl up, and then the next one will crawl on top of the first one again, and then just pull it back down by weight. And so many people, when they try to be successful, people will try and bring them down to their level. Have you noticed that? One of the things I used to tell young people, such as Benji, for example, I used to say to young people when I was doing leadership training, was, I want you to understand that you have been away for 4 days, but you've done about 10 years growth in terms of your, potential and your understanding of life, just by the virtue of what we have taught you this weekend. And so when you go back, you're not going to fit into your friends' environment as well as you used to, because you are now, light years away from that thinking. because of what you've been learning and practicing over the course of the last 4 days. And people would look at me and go, yeah, right. Yeah. And then they go back. And I was amazed how many people would come back to me and say, Sal, you were right. And because I realized how petty people are and how much time they waste and how da 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 and all this. And you're right. I don't fit in the same way as I did. And also they are making fun of me because of the way I think now. And you said, and I did say to them, I'd say, by the way, when they do that, I want you to should not be angry. It's just human nature. And the main thing is, if you can, pass on the knowledge. But if you can't, understand that's life. Not everybody wants to learn what you have learned. All right. And actually, Tim Allen said this about being wealthy. He said, being wealthy when no one else is like being the only one at the party with the drink. You see things differently, right? And I think it's very important to understand that. Be supportive of people's success. And the other thing is, if you are the one being successful, don't forget who got you there, because you didn't get there on your own. Tim Allen said, I used to live an isolated existence, even in relationships, but now my family knows me for who I really am. Mostly, that's a good thing. How many of you have found that out, who you really are? Actually, is not a bad thing. It just takes a lot of learning to be comfortable in it. It's like, we spend so much time with all the different masks pretending we're what we're not. And, it's when you actually don't need to pretend anymore, you can just be who you are. I think that is wonderful. It's just like, and that's something to do, I must admit, as I got older, I cared less and less about what people thought about me. And eventually just go, hey, you don't like me? That's fine. Um, all right. Tim Allen said, I had a very easy time loving an audience. But when it's one-on-one with someone, all I wanted to do was run away, because maybe they're not going to want something, or maybe they're going to want something from me I can't give, or they're going to hurt me. I always used to say that to people. It's very difficult for people to understand that I had no fear of standing up in front of 7,000 people, and doing a motivational speech. It never worried me. But talk to 3 or 4 people, it's very different for me. Put a microphone in my hand and give me an audience of 7,000 people. Some of you probably can imagine I could really get going on that. It was just like, okay, fine. But a very small group of people was much more difficult for me. And I always used to say, it's really strange, isn't it? That I could meet people who had seen me speak, and then they would meet me privately. Maybe they ended up in my house for some reason. And they go, I can't believe how quiet you are. And I go, I know, it's strange, isn't it? When I say quiet, I don't mean that I don't talk, but that I don't have a lot of noise going on around me. I'm a very, I live very quietly. Okay, that's Liz saying, that's me too. I'm so comfortable in front of big crowds. Small groups are way more intimidating. Yes. And, I'm not sure why that is. Part of me, when I tried to sort of think about it, was, if you've got 7,000 people in front of you, and half of them like you, that's an awful lot of people. Hi, Andy. Good to see you. And big hug. Wow. How did you suddenly find us out of nowhere? All right, so that's interesting. Isn't that interesting? Nana's saying, I will talk to anyone I don't know. But if I know you, yikes. Now, isn't that interesting? So, Nana, is that about you will talk to anybody you don't know so that you can make them feel comfortable? That would make sense to me, knowing you the way I do. Mm. So, the reason that you don't have a problem is you're a giver rather than a taker in terms of connectedness. And I'm certain there are other people that relate to that. And yet there are other people, who and I don't mean that in a nasty way, take as in a nasty way. I must admit that I can be quite a wallflower if you put me in, if I go out socially, um, I can be quite a wallflower sometimes. Difficult as that might be to imagine. So I can sort of understand that. All right. And Tim Allen said that nothing is as easy as it is in a sitcom. Issues that we can take care of in 20 minutes on a show can stretch our out over years in our real families. How many of you agree that some of the best lines in sitcoms? I keep thinking about things like All in the Family. For those of you who might be old enough to remember that, All in the Family. Really, when you think about it, was so groundbreaking in so many ways. It was so funny because it was so true. They touched on everything that was taboo. They talked about racism. Yeah, and was Archie Bunker anything but an absolute racist and homophobe and you name it. Archie Bunker was it. Brilliant acting when you think about it now. Way ahead of its time, and it just was. And the long-suffering Edith. It was the reason it was so funny was because it was so true. And they set it up so that you knew, there was going to be trouble any minute now. Yeah, things that were definitely not talked about. Okay, Niesh is saying, I'm actually a shy person who'll open up to individuals once I see them as friends. But from the moment they break my trust, I'm back to being shy. It's like a turtle. I think a lot of us would agree with you on that one, Nyasha. I think that's a very different story. How many of you would agree with Nyasha that you can be perfectly comfortable with people until they do something to break your trust in them? And then you withdraw. I think, Nyasha, that is totally human. The trick is to not stay inside your shell. Quite honestly, it's like, we sort of withdraw till we can sort of get ourselves back together again, and then, go back to trusting people. Knowing, I told the story, Erin's story at lunchtime. Yes, you see, Nana makes the point, and very valid too. She's saying, I forgive, but I don't put myself in the line of fire. I will forgive you for what you did, but I'm not going to trust you with important stuff again. Niesha's saying, I loved All in the Family, but I hated Archie, and I felt so sorry for poor Edith. That, quite honestly, Niesha, that was the whole point. It was written so that you would feel sorry for Edith. But by the way, if you looked at Edith, was she happy? If you looked at it, Edith just let it roll right over her half the time, right? She just didn't react to him at all for a lot of the time. Yeah. And Archie, as much as you hated his bigotry and everything else, you had to love him to bits. I had a father who, quite honestly, was about, as close to Archie Bunker in terms of his thinking as you can imagine. But it was really funny. So Niesh is saying, I don't know why, but I never forgive or forget. How many of you used to do that? You'd never forgive anybody. You see, my attitude is I really don't think many people intentionally hurt me. I don't think it's their intent anymore. I used to think they did. But now it's just like, hey, the reason I hurt is because of me, not because of them. I can always remember somebody I really considered a friend said something to me one day and said, well, the only people who talk on YouTube are egotistical idiots. And I looked at them straight in the face and said, and you say that to me knowing that I talk on YouTube. Is that correct? It was just like, really? And it told me everything I needed to know right there. So to me, it's like, remember what Terry Cole Whitaker said, right? What you think of me is really none of my business. I still am happy to talk on YouTube. Why? Because I'm happy to be able to help some people. Not everybody, but some. How many of you? Yeah, I must admit, I give people more chances than they deserve. And even when people have said to me, "Why did you give them another chance?" I said, "Because I've made mistakes. What about you?" Okay, so but when it goes too far, Liz is saying that then when I'm done, I'm done. How many of you, you will give somebody a number of chances, but after a while you just go, "Excuse me, that's enough." And you're right, Liz. Yes, Nyasha, that's how it was written, right? That in the days when a lot of men treated women that day, Nyasha's saying, for those of you watching on the replay, Nyasha's saying, I find that he always, this is Archie Bunker, always looked down on her and made her less than worthy in a way. Yeah, and that's because a lot of men treated women that way. Their place was in the kitchen and making babies. They didn't have the right to an opinion. And it was just like, you and how many of you grew up, little girls should be seen and not heard? And one of the other things, Tim Allen is saying here that he said, I've gotten so far past Android and iPhones that I'm back to the flip phone. It's funny, you can buy antique flip phones online now, and a lot of us collect them. Clearly, they are considered antiques. It's just like, that there's yeah, Lizzie, I agree. Everybody has made mistakes, right? So that's why I give people chances. But a lot of people have criticized me for it, said, why would you give them another chance, after what they did? I go, because I've made mistakes. My attitude is, I'll just keep thinking the best for a while. But, after third or fourth time, I go, I think that's enough now. I think, Lizzie, that's the interesting thing. Where do you draw the line? And it depends how painful it becomes. If they're constantly hurting you, but I've also had it where I've had people in my life that constantly judging me and challenging. But to me, it's like if I think the intent basically is good, I have to say that if I believe that deep down in their soul they don't mean this to attack the way that it does, then I will give them the benefit of the doubt and keep giving them chances. I've done it with viewers. certain viewers that have just attacked me time after time after time. It's almost like, why do you even come? If you think, if I say white, they'll go, no, it's black. And if I say up, they'll go, no, it's down. And I keep going. But, I have to look at the intent. What is the intent here? Do I believe this person, really understands what they're doing in that? And the answer is, I don't think so. Then I will keep giving chances. So Tim Allen said, I've always enjoyed do-it-yourself projects. Being in a position to actually help design and bring tools to the market is an incredible opportunity. Being able to fund charities as a result is phenomenal. Right? Isn't that amazing? Do I mean you? Nana, I have done at times. Yes, there have been times, but not just you, Nana. I've had other viewers that that came in and did that, and it's just like I just know that that's not some people mean to hurt me and others don't, and I don't think I've ever I've been confused, but I've never really believed that you meant to hurt me. I don't think that's in your DNA. All right. How many of you relate to this one? Dogs will eat until they die. Cats will leave food in the dish. Incomprehensible to a dog. It's like some of you can open up a bag of candies and eat one or two and put the rest away. And some of us, find that incomprehensible. How do you do that? How do you find the willpower not to keep eating? I'm learning little tricks, by the way. Last night I decided I needed to eat a rice cake, a caramel rice cake. And, it was a set of 5. And I'm going, do not take the set of 5 with you, right? If you take a set of 5 with you, you will eat all 5. And so what I did was, I took 2 and put the rest away, right? And that is what I have to do. It's like, if you need more, you're going to have to get up and go and get more. This is not that they're right next to you, so you can just mindlessly keep eating. And by the way, Jody, in terms of, is it possible to eat 2 meals a day instead of 3? And is that healthy? I want to tell you that I didn't realize it until I was talking to Jody about it today. But on Fridays, that is what I do. That is interesting. I'm just reading. Nana's saying Rick considers family size a single serving. Yeah, how many of you have done that when you go? That is so true, right? I'm amazed. You watch people. You'll watch people, go to the takeout. In my local Safeway, they've got a takeout a Chinese place that's busy all the time, and it's amazing. You'll watch people, take an incredible amount of food, and then if you watch them carefully, when they go to get the chopsticks, they only get one set of chopsticks. And it's just like they're going to eat that all themselves. I think it's amazing. Yeah, Lizzie, it doesn't surprise me that you can open the bag and the whole lot's gone. Yeah. I mean, it's like, when do they have time to think? It's that good. Why would you stop? Right. Oh, Jodie's saying she thinks that about mac and cheese. I am actually amazed how much better I'm getting about serving myself a more reasonable portion of mac and cheese. And then I allow myself to have the same again if necessary. Whereas before I would have 2 helpings to start with and then another 2. So I'm learning this one. And by the way, I'm thinking about doing mac and cheese again this weekend. I'm definitely in looking forward to some. All right, listen to this one. I didn't know this, but Tim Allen said that his stepfather stepped in where no man would have stepped in. 6 kids, 5 of them boys. Now that's heroic. Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that was the case for him. This is incredibly wise. Yeah, listen up for this one. Tim Allen said men often do things for women that they don't want to do, so that women will do things for men that they don't want to do. Very droll. Okay, so how about this one? Tim Allen said that when somebody tells you that they're not very smart, they're saying exactly the opposite. How many of you have had that happen where somebody claims to be not very clever when the truth is they really are very clever? And I definitely have had it happen to me. Tim says that he blends memories. I blend them into one that's funny. I exaggerate to clarify. Oh, interesting, Jody. I do. I am that actually interesting. I was not aware of that. But I have to tell you that on paper I'm not. Liz is saying, but have you ever ordered food and pretended it was for more than one person when the delivery comes, but it's just for you? Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing. I literally will go and do shopping and I'll be along with other people with a full cart of stuff. And when I finished, I very quietly say, and would you believe this is for one person? And Niesh was saying, Lizzie, I think whenever a bag is opened, whatever is inside often disappears. Yes. It's just how quickly can I get rid of this? And my question is, what are there certain things that you cannot possibly stop eating? I have those licorice scented candies. I'm trying to think what they're called. I want to say black and white, but it's not called that. It's called and they've got a white hard shell on them, and inside there's licorice. I don't know. Goodies. Is it goodies? They call it here in Canada. I want to tell you, I cannot stop eating those once I've started. Tim Allen said this about and some of you are going to relate to this one. You might want to ask, you might want to keep this one in your back pocket. It says, can we take the direct flight back to reality, or do we have to change planes in Denver? I have a feeling that if Linda in the UK would like that one. After she's done the listening for 10 minutes, it's like, okay, fine. Can we get back to reality now? I think that's a great quote. Okay, so how about this one? The world's a mean place. It's unfair, then it's fair. It's hateful, and then it's loving. It's very peculiar place on philosophical and metaphysical and religious levels. How many of you are going, you never quite know what life's going to throw at you today? Right? And some days you're going, really, what did I do to deserve this today? And then the next day you're going, okay, everything's fine again. It's just like, wow. Lizzie, I am certain that you have been through that, right? With all that's been happening with your illness. It's just like, really, what did I do to deserve this? But Lizzie, I've got to ask you a pretty straight question here. Have you grown at all as a human by all that you've been struggling with? Good and plenty. Yes, that's true. Do you feel that you have grown at all? Because to me, I look at it and I really do believe that that everything that happens to us happens for a good reason. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm pretty certain that you have grown in terms of looking after yourself, and looking after your rights and I'm pretty certain that you've got a lot stronger about going, yeah, I know that you don't think it's X, Y, and Z, but I'd like that checked out, please. I've got, my sense is that you have got a lot stronger as a human being. You found out, what support looks like to you. And you start really appreciating this, certain things more than others. And so I look at it and go, this was a big lesson for you. This whole time of not being well, I believe, has been a great lesson to you. But I'm wondering if it feels like it from your side. I was thinking about Nana saying, that she got that virus and then was sick for months. It's just like, how come some people got the virus and they were right, within a month? I don't know why that is, but it has a lot to do, I think, with our, what's going on. I think at the same time, Nana, that you got sick, you also had people you care about get sick. And, it's just like maybe it was time for you to rest. Maybe it was time for you to look after you instead of everybody else, and I don't know. It affected your voice as well. You were saying that it was difficult for you to speak and to be heard. And I wondered whether, that is true of us, that sometimes it is difficult to be heard. Okay. Nash is talking about, they got a snack in where she lives, and it's a wafer stick filled with vanilla, strawberries, creams. Oh, doesn't that sound good? Rondelise. I've never heard of it. Do any of you recognize it at all? And how many of you going, I got to find out about that? There's part of me, hang on a second, let me see if I can find out what it looks like. Maybe we'll recognize it under a different name. That's what I like to do, because I found in different countries they call it different things. Rondelise. Oops, no, wrong thing. Go back. I wonder what it is. No, can't find it. So find out. Sounds like pokey. Okay. Let's look at pokey and see if she recognizes what it looks like. They make different ones, though. All right. This is a chocolate one. Let me see if I can find. Most pokies are normally. Oh, here we go. There we go. Strawberries and cream. Does it sort of look like this, Nyasha? like a stick. No, that's okay, honey. We're trying to find out. Does it look anything like that? Like it's a long stick? Or is it bigger? Liz, you've been through an emotional roller coaster. Absolutely. But if you notice, Liz, that each time you go through that roller coaster, you're getting stronger each time. Yesha, find out the correct spelling and let us have it, and then we'll be able to look it up and see what we call it here in North America. Right. Now listen to what Lizzie's saying. I've been struggling a lot, if I'm honest. But the more that comes back clear, the better it has been. Yes, I think a lot of it has to do with fear. And I've been driving the doctors nuts. Yes, you see, you've given up going at their speed. You now want it a bit more at your speed, right? No problem, Nyasha. We'll be interested to hear what it is. No rush, just whenever you get a chance. So I think, Liz, that if you look at it and take as I'm trying to, is to take everything that happens in your life as a lesson. Whether it's a lesson in not everybody can understand where you're coming from. I totally understand what it's like waiting for results that could be negative. And so, Lizzie, I totally related when you were going through those tests and waiting for results. I want you to know that I just knew. I'm certain Jody did. I'm certain anybody who's been through a major illness knows what that feeling is like, and anybody who's been through tests knows what it's like, right? Where you have the test done and it could come back as a very negative result. All right. So this is saying it's been tough, I'll admit it. The anxiety around not knowing why has been the struggle. Yeah, you see, that's the whole thing. Why am I feeling this? I can remember for the longest time I was complaining of having a pain, Lizzie. And it was horrible. I was in a lot of pain. And they kept telling me it was in my head. And I kept saying, I don't think it is. I'm in a lot of pain. And it got so bad that my husband actually recommended I go to a psychiatrist because he thought I was, had a major problem. And it was interesting that I went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist talked to me for a while, and he said to me, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it's certainly not your mind. I said, okay, thank you. And Liz, what it turned out to be, and they only found out by accident when I had to go in for another operation. I actually had an IUD, a birth control thing that had exploded inside my womb. And so, it had exploded. I had literally pieces of metal, working their way through my insides. Do you think that was a little painful? And, it was just an amazing thing where, I went in for a totally different operation when they found it. And I remember the doctor waking me up, and she had this bottle with her, like a specimen jar. And there were all these bits of metal. And she woke me up because when they found it, they literally took me out of the operation to wake me up, to talk to me, to find out whether I knew what this was. And they literally said, do you know what this is? And I said, no. What is it? And they said, we just got it out of your uterus. And I said, you've got to be joking. And they said, we think it's an IUD. Did you have an IUD? And I said, yes. But I said, haven't had, that was years ago. And they said, well, how long have you had the pain? I went, years. I said, And this is why. By the way, we're putting you back under again because what we're going to do is get the rest of it on. We just wanted your permission to do that. And I went, yeah, go right ahead. So, it's like, Liz, understand, just because they say it's all in your head doesn't mean it is. Right? And that's what I want you to stay true on. There's something wrong. You keep going until you find out what it is, honey. Right? And, keep changing doctors if you have to, do whatever. And just keep saying, there's something going on. And so far, and that's what I'd word it. Say, I've had some really good doctors that tried to find the answer, but we haven't got to it yet. So, I'm looking for new ideas. These are the symptoms. Tell me what it could be. How many of you would agree with this one? Tim Allen said, you really don't know what people are like until you put them under a lot of stress. How many of you have noticed that a lot of people can be one person when they're not under stress, but their whole being changes if they get under heavy stress? And maybe you recognize that in yourself. I always say to people, it's really interesting to see what our backup style is. That's what I call it, the backup style. When I'm perfectly at ease and feeling unthreatened or happy, I actually am at one level. But if you start to corner me or attack me or do whatever, there's another part of me that somehow comes out. Do any of you recognize that? And it's interesting to me how that it's always to do with, I know what my triggers are, and if I have something happen that feels like it's triggering me, a different reaction comes out of me. All right, Erin's saying her mom had a really bad infection because of her IUD. Yeah, they could be nasty little things, those things. If you can imagine, it was just like a spring exploding, and that's what happened. So to me, I am now much more aware than I used to be of what happens, and I can feel it in my body start to react. I can feel the triggers start to click in, and so I do try to be more aware and not react as heavily as I used to. How about this one? I am sad for adults who want to be children, and for children who want to be adults. How many of you can remember? That's what you wanted. The big thing was, I want to be an adult. I want to be an adult, and I want to be treated like one, right? Can you remember, when you were probably 11 or 12, you couldn't wait to be in your teens, right? That was so great to be in your teens. I won't be a child anymore. I'll be a teenager. Wow. And then you found out maybe that wasn't so much fun. Rondeletti. Okay, let's have a look and see if we can find out. Niasha's saying Rondeletti. Yeah, so Rondeletti. Search. Oh, yes, we do have it. Yes, I know exactly. Hang on, I'm going to get the picture up for people. How many of you recognize this? That's the chocolate one, and obviously they make a Strawberries and cream one. Yeah, there we go. I think this is... No, that's not the strawberries and cream one. Anyway, I do know what you're talking... they call it pirouette as well. Okay, interesting. Here's the strawberry one. Oh, no, that's party favors. That's different. Rondelletti. Anyway, thank you so much for looking that up for us. I'm trying to find... Most of the ones here have got chocolate on the inside. Very tasty, though. Or in Quebec, they call them spiruline. You see, different countries call it different things. No, it's not a local snack. We all know it under different names. I'm trying to remember what we call it here in Canada. But yes, I recognize it definitely. That's why I like to see the picture. Because a picture will help me know whether it is something I recognize. All right, so Liz, interesting, Liz. They keep pushing pain drugs at you, but you are refusing them. All right. So the question, though, Liz, is: are you refusing them because you don't want them to have the easy answer, which is just to give you drugs, right? You want them to find out what's causing the pain. I had that happen at one stage where I was in a lot of pain, Lizzie, and I got caught up with the summer thing where they don't do operations in the summer, in August or whatever. And this pain was getting progressively worse, and they were giving me more and more drugs to keep me, out of pain. And the drugs were getting serious. And, it was interesting because I went to my doctor and I said, do I have to go to the States and pay the money to get an operation to get out of pain? Or are you going to find me a hospital bed? And I don't care, that their bed's closed. I care about the fact I am in a lot of pain and I'm taking meds that I shouldn't be taking. I can't believe these meds are good for my body. So therefore, what do I need to do? Do I need to go to the States to get looked after here? And it was one of those times where the Canadian system didn't work for me. When you know me well enough to know that I'm a great one for the Canadian system most of the time. But when I was in that much pain, it was definitely not something that I liked at all. So, and by the way, I did manage to get a bed. Right. Now, I have to tell you that I do relate to this comment from Tim Allen, which he said, my comedy is not mine. It's a gift. I'm not that smart. I totally relate to that. I've people have said to me, you are so funny or so wise or whatever, and I keep saying, I'm not. I remember somebody who was a therapist or said to me, what you are is, listen to this one, what you are is a verbal genius. And I went, what? And they said, a lot of people don't understand this, but you probably get your best ideas and probably say your wisest things when you are just talking and suddenly you realize you've said something and you probably stop yourself and think, wow, where did that come from? And I went, yeah, it happens to me all the time. And he said, yeah, that's called a verbal genius. You actually need to be talking for your mind to get it all sorted out. And then what happens is it does that and then it comes out. Jody, how many times have I said to you, I didn't plan the broadcast to go that way, but it went that way, so I went with it. And then I'm amazed at some of the things that came out that I really, if you ask me, I obviously hadn't prepared because I had no intention of the broadcast going in that direction, but it did. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I find that that's the fascination of doing the broadcasts. I believe it's my job to start the direction and wherever the world takes us. Yeah, Jody says she's lost count. Yeah, I've said it to you, Red. Wow, that's interesting. That took an interesting direction, not one I'd planned. Yes, Lizzie, that's an interesting one. I wonder how many people in this room with us talking and those watching on the replay agree with that one. Lizzie's saying, I always sat with the adults growing up at family parties. How many of you found that you related better with adults than you did with children? I must admit that I did. Um, I always found adults' conversation far more interesting than the children's conversation. Yeah, Jody says yes. Isabel says yes. Sure, Nana. Do you want? Would you like me to do that on the Facebook page or just here? And Nana's saying, could I ask for prayers for her friend? Um, it certainly, Jody. Could you just give me a reminder when the broadcast is over that I put something up on Facebook? Yeah, I will do that for you, Nana. And this is the one that's gone into hospice, right? Now, I just want to, is this the lady that used to live across the road from you? The one with the son? I think you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that was fast progression, right? One minute she was fine, and the next minute she went downhill really quickly. So sorry to hear that. Yeah, so sad. We never know. Enjoy today because we never know, right? Oh, I didn't know that she was your best friend there. I thought, okay, it's not the one that was next to you, it's the one that was across the way. Yeah, interesting. All right, so let me just roll back because I want to see what Lizzie's been saying about these drugs. Yeah, Lizzie, thank you, Mr. Teddy. I appreciate that. Oh, she's the one that was next to you, not the one that was across the way with the sun. It was the one, huh? The one that phoned for you, the one that phoned for you when Rick was sick. Is that right? Well, absolutely, Nana. We'll make sure, we'll make sure that we send up some prayers for her. Can we have a name just so that people can relate to a name, maybe? I don't mean her full name. Okay, and wait 1 second. All right, so Jody's just asking me to check something because apparently Aaron's also asking for a prayer. Okay, Aaron, if you're listening to me, absolutely. All right, everybody. So I will make sure that with Jody's help that we will ask for that those prayers as well. For those of you who don't know, apparently Erin has to have another biopsy on her liver. Although her numbers are getting a lot better, they're not quite where they should be. So so sorry to hear that. And definitely we'll put up thoughts and prayers for her as well. Thank you for letting me know, Jody. I did do that. Okay, I'm totally confused now. She's the one with the son. Okay, your neighbor is the one with the son, and the son was the realtor. Is that correct? I'm trying to make sure I understand. Yeah, we will make sure that not only that we send up prayers here, but also that we put some prayers up for a call for prayers on Facebook for you, both of you, both Erin and Nana. Okay. Hi there, Pat. Good to see you. So you're saying it's the son who is sick, not the neighbor. It's the neighbor's son. Ah, okay. I nowhere did I realize that. Pat, how are you going camping? All right. Nana, it is your realtor's mom who lives next door. Crazy weekend, Pat. Why is that? Okay, so what we're trying to find out, is it Margie that's sick or Margie's son? Why don't you email me, Nana, so that I get it right, so that when I put the so that when is it Maggie? Yeah, I'm lost as well. Maggie is sick. That's what we were trying to find out. Okay. So the thoughts and prayers should go out for Maggie. All right. Got it. Thank you, Nana. Sorry that we didn't get it on the first run. I'm glad I wasn't the only one that was getting confused. So I was beginning to feel a bit stupid here. All right. I think this is a probably Maggie would be my sense, Nana. I could be wrong, but normally it's spelt this way, I think. Does that look right? But the main thing is we'll get some thoughts and prayers up for her. All right. So, and yeah, thoughts and prayers for you as well, Nana, because it's not easy having a friend in that situation. It's a bit like Beth's friend suddenly found out that her breast cancer, has metastasized through to other organs, and that's a horrible thing when you have somebody in that situation, and it's a horrible thing that you've got a friend that's in hospice. But the good news is, will you be able to visit her in hospice, Nana? Is that something you'll be able to do? And if any of you viewers, have been through this, perhaps you can support Nana a bit as well. Just if you've been through, having somebody you care about um, in hospice. Yeah, I understand that, that the local health people will take over and that you don't know where they'll find an opening. But do, if you can, Nana, do everything you can to make sure you visit her while you can. Obviously what you do is your choice, but I just think that if you've built that level of friendship up in such a short space of time, that's really important. And now it's about her and her needs. And what things she likes and what food she likes and stuff like that. So you probably be in a better position than almost anybody to do that. Yes, obviously they're trying to get into your town, but I understand that may not, there may not be an opening there. And it is difficult that sometimes people end up, in totally different places. I can remember, terrible press going on about the fact that a husband and wife both got sick at the same time and they ended up in two different facilities. And I just remember people saying that is insane. They've been together for 50, 60 years and now they're going to split them up when they're in hospice. I mean, it really was very frustrating, but, it was beyond my ability to help that. How many of you relate to this one? Tim Allen said, I'm a very bad student, but a great learner. Boy, I relate to that. I love to learn, but I'm a really bad student. I learn on my terms. How many of you agree with that? You don't want to sit down and formally be taught, but boy, when you want to learn something, you learn it on your own terms. I know Niasha's like that just from experience. So it's interesting to hear that Tim Allen feels the same way. The interesting thing that I didn't realize is that he really is into tools and Tool Town. All right. It wasn't just a sitcom that he ended up with. It was what he loves to do. He loves to tinker with, with tools. And so it was the ideal sitcom for him because, that was his life. And I'm certain all the stories that we got on Tool Time were ones of things that had happened to him in some way. Apparently, he said to his wife, Joel, we became parents so we could tell our kids what to do. Otherwise, we're just the tallest people living here. I think that's quite cute. Did you know that Tim Allen is actually very good graphically? He's a graphic artist as well. And he loves making logos for people. I didn't know that. So, he's not just creative in his words. And some of us relate to this quote, and I want to tell you something. I certainly relate to it. How many of you relate to, if it ain't broke, you can probably still fix it? I cannot tell you how many things in my life I have I have taken apart to see how it works. And then went, oh. And not necessarily, put little labels on so I could get it back together easily either. I did learn that trick afterwards, but all right. And how many of you have learned this one, for those of you that are married? And Tim Allen said, to get a man's attention, just stand in front of the TV and don't move. He'll talk to you. I promise. And Jody, very tongue-in-cheek, is saying, well, that shocks me that you took something apart to see how it works. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and I believe you, Jody. Now, some of you will really relate to this quote as well. Tim Allen said, real men don't use instructions, son. Besides, this is just the manufacturer's opinion on how to put it together. Oh, I so relate to that. I always said that the instructions are only for people who can't work out how to put it together. And I don't know about the rest of you, but if I have to look at the instructions, I actually feel quite devastated that I wasn't smart enough to work it out without the instructions. It's like a personal challenge, anytime I anytime I get anything. And it's amazing the things you remember. I was in a relationship with a guy and I bought him a technical type present, like I want to say Wi-Fi, but a hi-fi recording. What do you call it? Anyway, I bought him something that was technical, and I couldn't believe it. He took the paper off the present, saw what it was, saw what the box was, opened it up, found the instruction manual, and closed the box. And I'm going, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to read the instructions. Yeah, this was a concept that I didn't relate to at all. I said, you're joking, right? And he goes, no. And he not only read the instructions, the sort of the tools that they put in there and the nuts and the bolts and everything else. He counted every single one of them to make sure that he knew what they were and how many he had. And only after he had checked that off, he literally took a pen and he checked off every single thing. And when all that was done, then he started to read the instructions on how to put it together. Yep. In the meantime, I'm going, can we just put it together, please? How can we put it together if we don't know how to do it? I'm going, live a little. Nope. Needless to say, this was not a man I got to marry. Yeah, Jody, you can imagine that, right? Where's the fun in that, really? And about love, Tim Allen said, the guy knows he's in love when he loses interest in his car for a couple of days, right? Yeah, that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? How we lose interest in certain things. We know we're obsessed with something when we lose interest in other things. That's so true. I think this one is very true as well. Tim Allen said, if you don't decide where you're going in life, life will decide for you. And I think that I think about what's happening to Lizzie as well. That Lizzie is now on a mission to get the right answers. For a long time, life was doing stuff to her, and now she's doing stuff to sort it out, because it's like, now I really have to pay attention to this. And I love you for it, Lizzie. I'm so proud of you. So, how many of you how many of you have seen in the days when I was driving to work, that I used to have a lot of problems when I saw really nice cars go by. I really am one of those people. I really appreciate a good car. And one thing that Tim Allen said is, I think women like Ferraris. A Ferrari isn't everybody's car. Good night, Nana. Sleep well if you can. I don't know if you know, but Tim Allen lost his father when he was a child. Um, he died in a car accident, I believe. And Tim Allen said, I have irrational fears, and they all go back to losing my father as a kid. I've never gotten over it. I'm delighted that he is man enough, if you like, to be able to say that. He is not without his own demons. This is cute. Tim said that while awaiting sentencing, I'm not sure for what, I decided to give stand-up comedy a shot. The judge had suggested I get my act together, and I took him seriously. I wonder if that's true. All right. So how many of you are single child? You were the only child in your family. And the reason I ask that is because, it is interesting, the difference in single children versus ones that grew up with lots of brothers and sisters. And I didn't know this either, that Tim Allen only has one child, a daughter. And he said, I have an only child. She is so independent and so good with adults. And, if you are the only child, you learn to be good with adults because you will see more adults than you do children. Right? You don't, you spend time on your own, which makes you very independent. You don't have siblings to talk to at night or whatever. It's just you. And so I think you do learn to become very independent very quickly. And I wondered if any of you are only children in your family. And whether you would agree. I grew up with, first of all, a brother and a sister, and then my mom remarried, and I gained another brother and a sister. Then you learn to get a voice. You know what I mean? If you don't learn to talk up, you're not going to ever have an opinion about anything. And so it was really interesting how, and big family table, so you had to learn to project. And I can see it now that, really, it was amazing how that changed the dynamic, when there were that many people sitting at a table. And for those of you who come from big families with lots of children, lots of siblings, um, did you find the same thing? Which is the only way you got to eat was if you could talk loudly enough to ask for something. So somehow those things do help us learn, and I'm very grateful for that. Listen to what Tim Allen said here. He said, women now have choices. They can be married or not married, have a job or not have a job. They can be married with children or unmarried with children. Men have the same choice we've always had, work or prison. Interesting. Now, this one I like. Tim said, I have to get a license to drive a motorcycle to protect myself and the people around me. I am adamant that there should be some sort of licensing required to have children. How many of you agree? You should have to pass some sort of test before you're allowed to have children. Basic understanding of the needs of children and how to look after them. Wow, Jodi's saying her brother was 12 years older than her. It was like being an only child. Yes. Interesting. Really interesting. So you learned to survive on your own. You learned to keep your own counsel. There are a lot of things that you gain from being an only child, even if you felt like an only child. How many of you agree that really we should have to take some sort of test to be allowed to have children? And I think before we have pets, we should have some sort of test as well. I find it really interesting. My local SPCA type place has a questionnaire before they allow you to adopt a dog, for example. And one of the questions is, how much do you think it will cost you to look after this dog per year? And I always used to put a figure in there of about $2,000. And I noticed that whenever I've done that, they always look at me and go, "You've owned dogs, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, a lot of them." And I said, and a lot of them were older dogs, which is why I know it can cost me a lot of money. And they said, that's why we asked the question. You can tell who the dog owners are because they're not, they realize it's a lot more than just the food. Hi, Ty. Yeah, good point, right? How many of you get really irate about people who leave their children in cars, or equally so, Tyler, how many of you get incensed with people leaving their dogs in hot cars without even the window open? So Tyler, how are things in Montana? Tim Allen's mum said the only reason men are alive is for lawn care and vehicle maintenance. Did she forget the garbage? I wonder. Really, Tim, did she forget garbage? I'm certain that was in there. Okay, so yeah, Erin, I want to tell you something. It is amazing, isn't it, that some people should never have been allowed to have children, and yet they did. And we seem to be much more. It's the same thing, we sort of have tests for all sorts of things, but the most important role that we can play, is that of a parent. We don't have to take any tests for it all, and I think it's amazing. And yet, there are also How many of you, before you had children, studied unmercifully, bought every book you could about being a parent before you ever, brought one into the world? And then, even then, I would say that then when you actually produced your beautiful baby, all the learning you did went out the window because the reality is very different from anything that they ever wrote about. Tim Allen said this. He said, "It's true, I have a skill. And it's not relating to acting, not related to acting. It's not related to auditions. It's not related to studios, not related to public whim. It's whether I'm funny or not and whether I can entertain people." Right? The gift that Tim Allen speaks of is that he has the ability to entertain people. And Tim said here that I was gone so much in my first marriage. I love the moments when I engage with my youngest daughter now. It's not my thing to sit on the ground and play tea party, but I'll do it because it's a moment that will stick with me forever. And how many of you know that it's also a moment that will stick in the daughter's mind as well? It's if you think about your fondest memories as a child, I'm amazed how many people talk of these little things. It is the little things people remember. All right, and this I think is so important. Tim said that dad needs to show an incredible amount of respect and humor and friendship towards his mate, so that the kids understand that their parents are sexy, they're fun, they have things together, and they're best friends. Kids learn by example. If I respect mum, they are going to respect mum. You know, and that's what we need to remember, that we you've heard me say before, don't tell me you love me, show me. It's like it's so important that we need to treat each other in a way that is kind and respectful wherever we can, because we're seen by more people than we know. Tim said that men aren't allowed to have self-esteem because we're already supposed to have all the power. But most men earn less than they want. They barely the minimum wage. They're drones. They do stuff they don't want to do to support their families. And they're not sure why they do it. They don't know what they're doing half the time. And any time we stick up for ourselves, we're pigs because we don't know how to articulate our frustration and our joys. I think it's so cute. All right, so Erin's saying, "Oh, I know it's lots of memories my dad and I want to talk to you about, because a lot of those memories these days." Yeah, we're blessed to have gotten on so well. Yes, I agree, Erin. The memories that you have are so important that you discuss with him now. All right. He needs to know all the things that he did that had impact. Well, hi, Stephen. Nice to meet you, and nice to see you here. Um, all right. You're a cowboy railroader. That sounds wonderful, and happy doing it. And I don't do it for anybody else. I think that's wonderful. you're one of the few men, and I say that actually you love what you do. It's wonderful to hear. Yeah, Tyler's saying, it amazes me what people remember of me from school. It's quite flattering. Yes. Hi, Lizzie. Welcome back. We're about to close, but welcome back. It is, it is wonderful what people remember about you. All right. And so, and it's okay that some people don't. All right. And so to me, this is like, to be a memory for anybody is wonderful. All right. And I always get absolutely amazed when people write to me and say, I was in this situation, Sal, and I could hear you talking to me, and I'm going, wow, what a compliment that is. All right. And it's just like, I think it's so important. Lizzie, you were surprised that when you were, in that very difficult situation, that I was a friend. Well, hello. Yes, I think you do the same for me, Lizzie. And this, and by the way, and if you wouldn't, that doesn't matter to me at all. I'm only responsible for my behavior, and as far as I'm concerned, when I know you're struggling, that this is the time you need friends. Yeah, you saying you definitely would. Yeah, I have, but it wouldn't matter to me if you didn't, Lizzie. You understand that? I just knew that you needed some support. Okay, and to me, if I never speak to you for the next year, that was the time for me to speak with you, and to me that's important. I really believe that. I look at it and go that we all are here to support one another. All right, in whatever it is we're trying to do. And so I want to thank you all for being here to support one another. I want to thank you all for being here to smile a little, even if we end up with some serious conversations in the middle of it. Jody, I'd like to thank you for doing all you do to help me help others. And that, Lizzie's saying, that's why you keep coming back, because we care. I want to tell you something. We may not be perfect, Lizzie, but I do believe people care here. And, to me, it's like, if any of us learn anything, it's about the consistency is really what I think is so important. If there's going to be somebody here that you can talk to. That to me is the most important gift we can give to anybody. And Lizzie's saying yes, and you're always there to support me. Well, I get back to you as soon as I can. Yeah, Jody, it's my pleasure to do what I do. It's as Tim Allen was saying, it is my gift, and I am do the best I can with it, or even though it's not perfect. And that is the gift that I keep trying to say to people. Do what you do well, even if you don't do it perfectly. And for some of you, it's be a good friend. For some of you, it's be a wonderful mother. And for some of you, be a wonderful foster mother. I'm thinking about Pat and the incredible work she's done over the years, the hundreds of children she's looked after. We each have our role to play, and the role is important. Jody, I just want to tell you, I'm really looking forward to dinner. It was interesting. I've been talking to Jody recently about intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting, requires long spaces between meals. And I realized that I do that on Fridays. When I do broadcasts, I very rarely eat before the noon broadcast. I normally eat after it. And then I normally don't have dinner until after the broadcast in the evening. And, so I realized that I actually, on Fridays, I actually have got this art down to quite a science. And I'm having roast beef for dinner, left over from Sunday. And so I'm really looking forward to this. All right, everybody. So Yes, the other thing that I found, Lizzie, just a really important thing. Lizzie, I found that I make a drink of, I blend fruit like orange and apple with Metamucil, Lizzie. And what I do is if I start to get hungry, I just sip on this. And the funny thing is, I've had this going since after the broadcast. I made this after the lunchtime broadcast. I just keep filling it with more ice. Probably this much of fruit and Metamucil. And it works really well to just keep those cravings away. Mm. So, Isabel, great to see you, honey. Yeah, and by the way, Lizzie, I actually throw in mandarins, complete with the peel, and apples, complete with the core, and I just blend the whole lot in my, blender. So there's lots of fiber in there. But but it's just literally, it helps when you get those cravings. And it obviously works. I think there's something about having the Metamucil in there that helps as well, with the extra fiber. So now I'm going to be losing the weight. That's my next thing. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for caring for one another. I will be putting up the thoughts and prayers a little later this evening. But in the meantime, I just want you all to remember to smile a little. I hope some of you smiled this evening and that some of you related to some of the things that we got both from Tim Allen and from Seinfeld. Yeah. Actually, Liz, I want to tell you, I throw all sorts of things in there. There's a little bit of turmeric in there. There's a little bit of cinnamon. It's like all the good stuff that I know that is good for me. It's my health drink that I make once a day and sometimes twice a day if I need it. All right, everybody, have a super weekend. I'll see some of you on Sunday when we do our Soul Sunday. And in the meantime, life is just a series of lessons. Take a look at everything it's bringing you. There's a reason why it's coming your way. It's so you can learn the lessons that you need to learn. This is Dear Mama Sal. Big hugs to you all, and bye-bye for now.